Hello and welcome to another episode of the Alex Nitzberg Show. I'm Alex Nitzberg, and today I'm going to be talking about a few topics, including the U.S. government promoting pro-LGBT, specifically pro-transgender propaganda. Also, former President Donald Trump talking about COVID-19 vaccines, and some other items as well. So thank you for tuning in. If you've been enjoying these shows that I've been doing every Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, don't forget to hit the thumbs up button. And also, just know that I do them every Saturday. So, I mean, there might be a Saturday at some point where I don't, but I've been doing them every Saturday for a while now. So, please don't forget to go ahead and give it a thumbs up if you've been enjoying these. And also, let me see. I seem to be missing my chat thingy. Where is that? Trying. Where is the thing? I've lost my thing with my comments. Hold on. Let's see if I can find that again. Hold on one second. There it is. All right, I got it back up. All right, so yeah, if anybody leaves a comment, wants to leave a comment or anything, go ahead and do that during the show, and I will check those at the end. But let me switch over to my other camera. I think. Hold on a second. There we go. All right, so yep, there's a reminder. Please give it a thumbs up if you've been enjoying these shows. Also, before I get started, I just wanted to let you guys know again that I interviewed Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, a retired veteran of the Army, this week, and so I would really recommend that you go check that out if you haven't already. In fact, if you look here, you can see he has less views than my video about Mike Pence announcing that he was running for president. It seems like he should have more views. So, but yeah, he's a former congressman. He formerly served as the chair of the GOP, Texas GOP, Texas Republican Party. He's a great conservative and interesting guy. So I would definitely recommend that you go check out that interview if you have not already done so. But let me get started with this. You remember this guy? Everybody probably remembers this guy, and I'm saying guy on purpose. This is Rachel Levine, a biological man pretending to be a woman. Let me just play this. This is an old clip, but let me just remind you here.
I am honored to serve as the first female four-star officer of the U.S. Public Health Service Commissioned Corps, and the first openly transgender four-star officer to serve across any of the 8 uniformed services.
Yeah, so Rachel Levine and the Department of Health and Human Services are promoting pro-transgender propaganda, basically. In fact, I can actually say that this video that I'm about to show you some clips from was produced by the Department of Health and Human Services, and I'll show you at the end if I remember that at the end of the video it literally says produced by the Department of Health and Human Services. So what is this? This is a video of Rachel Levine interviewing, I kid you not, a self-described trans activist singer-songwriter. So we've got a transgender official interviewing a transgender activist, and this is posted on, look, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services YouTube channel. And here I'm going to show you this clip where Levine is promoting this idea of gender-affirming care. Put that in quotes. And let me just show you that clip here.
So, let's talk for a moment about the trans health care that our community needs, and transgender medicine and gender-affirming care. I mean, that term is important, although our opponents have weaponized it. What are your thoughts about the importance of gender-affirming care for trans youth in our community?
So, he says our opponents have weaponized it. Well, I mean, the term is self-evidently preposterous because when they say gender-affirming care, it's like doublespeak. That means it means the opposite of what it sounds like it means, right? So because here's the deal. When they say transgender woman, they're talking about a man pretending to be a woman. When they say transgender man, they're talking about a woman pretending to be a man. So when they say gender affirming care, what they're actually talking about is taking a biological man or a biological woman, but in this case I'll give an example of a man. So they're taking a biological man and they're giving them cross-sex hormones or possibly a surgery, or possibly if they're young, maybe puberty blockers, and they're doing the exact opposite, precisely the opposite of affirming or confirming their biological sex. Instead, they're giving them something to affirm their perception that they are in fact the opposite sex. And because the people that promote and propagate the radical leftist gender ideology, they make this dichotomy between sex and gender, and they try to say, well, gender is malleable and it can, you can identify as something. Of course, this is all ridiculous. Here's another clip.
We often say that gender-affirming care is health care. Gender-affirming care is mental health care, and gender-affirming care is literally suicide prevention care. Would that be your view as well?
So, yeah, there's this whole, the people that are pushing the radical leftist gender ideology, they keep asserting that people are going to commit suicide if you don't endorse, and support people in their perceived gender identity. And that's kind of like, he was talking about weaponizing the term gender affirming care. That's sort of interesting because it's kind of like this weaponization. It's like, oh, if you don't support and affirm the transgender movement, if you tell someone that no, they can't become a woman and no, they can't become a man, and that you don't affirm their perceived gender identity, then that's going to drive them to commit suicide. And so there's this whole thing where they keep accusing people who stand for reality of basically bullying and harassment, and they're like, oh my gosh, like these people are going to commit suicide if you don't affirm them. And so that's that sort of a narrative there. But yeah, so that's the government. And let me see if I can skip to the end here and show you. It actually says produced by the Department of Health and Human Services.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
And let me also note, you saw that thing up there that says Summer of Pride. If you look at this description down here, and it's like, all summer long, HHS will be celebrating the Summer of Pride as we work to ensure a healthier future for all people living in the United States during Pride Month and beyond. So, yeah, I mean, as you're probably aware, a lot of leftists are celebrating so-called Pride Month in June. But apparently now it's going to be even longer than that because the HHS is talking about the Summer of Pride. So they're going to be... So that, yeah, the U.S. government is just totally in the tank for the LGBT agenda. I've told you before, President Biden, every year that he's been in office, he puts out like a Pride Month proclamation. And we got HHS putting out literal transgender propaganda. So that's that. And let me move on let me move on to this here. All right, so we got another person jumping into the Republican presidential race here. This is Will Hurd. He used to be a Republican House member. He's no longer in office, but just thought I would note that. Another person. So this GOP field is getting pretty crowded. I'm not going to show you this, but basically I just thought I'd mention that he is running for president, and that's just another person in the race who has absolutely no shot whatsoever of even placing anywhere near the top. I would be shocked if anything happened with him, getting any traction at all. So, but anyway, he's in the race. All right, so this is pretty interesting. Former President Donald Trump asked point blank by Bret Baier of Fox News during an interview about whether he thought that the COVID-19 vaccine worked. Now, it's interesting because I'd say most conservatives at this point recognize, A, that the vaccine was not effective at, and most people I would think would recognize it was not effective at preventing people from getting sick. Obviously, tons of people who got vaccinated were still getting sick. Now, there's this narrative, the mainstream narrative is that someone got sick, but they didn't get as sick because they got the COVID-19 vaccine. And then many people actually, Daniel Horowitz at The Blaze, if you listen to him, he talks about how dangerous the COVID-19 vaccinations are. And so a lot of conservatives are very wary of or downright critical of the COVID vaccinations. But Trump is basically like not willing to come out and say, wow, these vaccines are terrible. He's just not, he's not doing that. And so I think a lot of conservatives should have concerns about Trump's take on the vaccines. Let me just show you this whole exchange here.
Did the COVID vaccine work? It's such an interesting question because not only that, I also did the Regenerons of the world, we did a tremendous job on that. But we had a vaccine. Now you have different COVIDs. You had COVID-19 and then you have different COVIDs, but we had original was COVID-19, which was the roughest one. So I have a Democrat friend who's very smart. Hopefully he votes for me, but he's very smart. He said, I don't understand one thing about you. I watch your rallies. They're incredible. You talk about beating ISIS. You talk about taxes. You talk about regulation. You talk about everything. But you never said that, I've never heard you talk about how the incredible job you did with the vaccines, because as you know, I got them done in 9 months, and it was supposed to take anywhere from 5 to 12 years. And he said, you may have saved in the world, throughout the world, 100 million people, and you never talk about it. I said, I really don't want to talk about it because as a Republican, it's not a great thing to talk about because for some reason, it's just not.
For some reason?
Yeah, for some reason, because people love the vaccines and people hate the vaccines, but conservatives aren't. And I understand both sides of it, by the way. I understand both sides very well. But you have a lot of people that love the vaccines. I mean, you do. They happen to be more Democrat than they are Republican.
That's why I asked the question.
But you have a lot of people. There are people that say I saved 100 million lives. I don't even talk about it.
Did the COVID...
So there you go. Trump is acknowledging, basically, that most of the people that are really supportive of the COVID-19 vaccines are Democrats. This is probably a problem for him. Like, I mean, let me know in the comments what you think. If you're a conservative, does it bother you? Does Trump's take on the whole vaccine thing bother you? Does it bother you that he's unwilling to sort of do an about-face and say, like, wow, this vaccine was bad, you know? It wasn't effective. It probably hurt a lot of people or whatever. I mean, whatever your take is, what do you think about this? Does this bother you? I think it's bad. I think it's a problem. I think he needs to change, but Trump doesn't usually admit he's wrong about stuff. So let me know what you think. All right, so next thing here. Christie, who's also running for president, who also has no chance whatsoever. He's a former New Jersey governor. I'm going to show you this clip here where he was on with Jake Tapper on CNN, and he basically said that, I think this isn't, is this round? There we go. He basically said that he doesn't think the government should step in and block children from being eligible to get gender transition procedures. So why? Like, why do we have Republicans who are, like, not on board with this? Like, I talk a lot about how we have rhino Republicans. Like, we have Republicans who are just, like, not on it. They're not in sync with the stuff they should be doing. Like every Republican running for president should be able to easily say, yes, the government should block people from getting gender transitions when they're minors. But listen to what he had to say here. And it sounds like he's saying he thinks parents should be able to, allowed to make that decision, and he doesn't think the government should block it. You can see what you think here.
Republican governors across the country have been banning hormone therapy and puberty blockers for transgender people under 18 years old, though they're banning those procedures only as trans health procedures. They can still do them for other purposes, puberty blockers, etc. As governor of New Jersey, you signed into law some legal protections for trans people, including students. What do you make of your fellow Republican governors and candidates going in the opposite direction?
Jake, what I believe we should be focused on most importantly in these issues is making sure there is parental involvement at every step along the way. I don't think that the government should ever be stepping into the place of the parents in helping to move their children through a process where those children are confused or concerned about their gender. And I just would say that parents are the people who are best positioned to make these judgments. And so what I'd like to make sure each state does is require that parents be involved in these decisions. You know, we're talking about students. I assume you mean people under the age of 18, Jake. And the fact is that folks who are under the age of 18 should have parental support and guidance and love as they make all of the key decisions of their life. And this should not be one that's excluded by the government in any way.
So it sounds like what he's saying is, basically that he thinks that the government should not step in and, block parents from being able to make that decision for their child. Now, I agree in theory with a lot of what he's saying. Parents should be able to make decisions for their children. Like, yeah, I mean, parents and not the government should be making decisions for their children. But there are laws when parents are abusing their children or treating them badly in some way where the government steps in and says, no, you can't do this. Well, this is one of those situations. If a parent is willing to subject their child, even if that child wants it, even if the medical community is recommending it, if they're willing to subject their child to, unnecessary puberty blockers or to hormones or to a surgery like a mastectomy or something like that, because they have been deceived by the radical leftist gender ideology and they're being told your child will commit suicide, all this stuff that the some people in the medical community are saying. If they have been deceived into believing that stuff and they want to do that to their child, then yeah, the government needs to step in and say, no, you can't do that. It shouldn't be necessary because no one should be trying to subject their children to this stuff. But whether it's because they've bought into it, whether it's because doctors are suggesting that they need to do this to their child, and whatever, if the parent is on board with that, the government needs to stop it and say no, this is not okay. And so it sounds like, and unless I'm misinterpreting it, it sounds like Christie's saying the government shouldn't be able to step in and stop that, and I disagree with that. And I think most conservatives also disagree and say the government should step in and stop that. Also, here, Mike Pence was speaking at the Faith and Freedom Coalition's Road to Majority, I believe it's called the Road to Majority Policy Conference. And he basically said that that all the Republican candidates should agree that there should be a national 15-week abortion ban at a minimum. And so he's challenging everybody that they should support that. Now, they won't. There's probably a number of candidates who wouldn't come out and support that, but let me show you that.
Every Republican candidate for president should support a ban on abortion before 15 weeks as a minimum nationwide standard.
This is just another one of the issues where a lot of Republicans are not really that conservative. Like, sure, I mean, why not? Why wouldn't every Republican candidate agree to something like that? Actually, I mean, if you're really conservative, you would go with something stronger than that, lower than 15 weeks. But anyway, I mean, yeah, that's a good idea. There's a lot of Republican candidates. I don't know if any of them will even come out and say, oh, actually, that's not true. I could be wrong, but I think Tim Scott has already said he would support something like that. You might want to fact check me on that. But anyway, so I mean, yeah, all the Republican candidates, they should agree to that. Doesn't necessarily mean they will, but that's something Mike Pence is calling for. Mike Pence is another one of the many candidates who's in the race who doesn't look like he's got any shot of really clawing his way to the top of the pack. But that's what he said about that. All right, and just one more topic here before I go. This is kind of funny. So in case you're not aware, the left guy is Elon Musk, and the guy on the right there is Mark Zuckerberg, the Facebook founder. Now it's called Meta, and it also encompasses Instagram and I believe some other things. So believe it or not, these two guys are apparently going to be doing a cage match. Like, they're actually going to physically fight each other. And I mean, it'll be interesting to see if this actually materializes. But basically, yeah, like Elon Musk said something on Twitter about a cage match, and then it seemed like Zuckerberg was taking him up on it. Zuckerberg on Instagram, he put up a thing that was like, send me location. And anyway, it seems like this is going to probably happen. I don't even care about fighting at all. Like, I don't watch fights or anything. But I'm pretty sure that both myself and many other people who don't care at all about fighting and never watch the sport would like to see this. And I would be very interested in watching this. But also wanted to mention, and this is just this is not a news item, it's a personal news item, but I'm getting close to 30,000 subscribers here on YouTube. So thank you to each one of you who has subscribed, and to all of you who have been watching these videos. I will admit that most of those subscribers are probably the result of me posting a whole bunch of video clips of Ronald Reagan, because people love Ronald Reagan and they love the Ronald Reagan video clips, and I got a lot of subscribers from that. But in any case, whether you were here for Ronald Reagan and then you ended up watching me or whatever, I'm glad that I almost have 30,000 subscribers, and I hope it keeps growing. And yeah, so thank you if you're a subscriber. I hope that next week, when I'm doing this show, and I believe that next week, by the time I'm doing the show, it'll be over 30,000, so that's exciting. And I just want to remind you once again, please go watch this interview with retired Lieutenant Colonel Alan West if you haven't done so already. Also, if you haven't followed me on Twitter, please do that as well. If you enjoy these shows, then you'll probably enjoy some of the stuff that I post over there. I usually post most of my articles that I write for The Blaze during the week over there. Sometimes not all of them, but most of them. Also, just like I post other stuff. Like, for instance, Christie on his website, he has this page where if you go to like a web page on a site that doesn't exist, or whatever, there's a thing here and it says 404, and it says, like a second term for Donald Trump, this page does not exist. So anyway, I post all kinds of stuff, funny stuff, news stuff. So anyway, yeah, so let me just, if anybody has another comment you want to leave or anything, I saw it says Mike87109 left a comment that says, Trump listening to a lying Democrat that he didn't name is sufficient to tell me that Trump is sometimes a poor judge of character. Well, Trump's personnel, decisions, and thank you. I just saw another thumbs up, so thank you for everybody who's giving me a thumbs up. And please do like and subscribe if you're enjoying these. But yeah, one of the problems and one of the criticisms of Trump is that he is not always hiring good people. He hires people that aren't always the best, basically. So, but anyway, thank you for watching this episode. If you've been enjoying these, please give it a thumbs up, and I'll probably be back next Saturday at 3:30. And don't forget to go check out the Alan West interview if you haven't already done so. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.